Hello, this is going to be my first significant build of a computer, and I've been watching YouTube videos for quite some time, and I've been spending over a year selecting pieces and just waiting for things to go on sale and things like that. Anyway, you can see behind me what it is that I've picked out to do my build with. Over on this side I've got a Phantek Enthoo Luxe, and after doing a lot of research I thought that was a great case, full-size tower. On this side we have the Maximus, Asus Maximus Hero 8, and I've got a ROG front base as well for doing the fan control and the temperatures. A Neptune 280 for radiator cooling. The Strix 980 Ti, I got that on a really good deal when the 1080s came out, so I was trying to get the 1080, but it was just way too much money. Anyway, going with a Core i7 6700 4 gigahertz, and I decided just to start with some 2400 Vengeance 32 gig set of RAM. I just wanted to fill all the slots, so I got 4 8s. For the power supply, I'm using a Corsair AX 860i, and I figured that's going to be enough, but I might have to get a larger one later on if I start filling up the hard drives. For now I'm going to start with, and I also got this NZXT aperture because I do a lot of photography, so I wanted the card reader built in. And I'm going to start off with 2 SSDs that I bought on Boxing Day last year, and it's still cheaper when I bought it on Boxing Day than it is now. But they're just SSDs, and I think they're 256s, and I got 2 of them. Okay. Anyway, let's see how it goes. I'm just going to rearrange all this stuff, and so I can do all my setup on my nice Maximum from Canadian Tire workbench. Okay, and here we go. Okay, so I guess the first part of my build is going to be to add in all the 5 1/4 inch bay items, which the first one is going to be my card reader by NZXT. It's a 5 1/4 inch size device. I already pulled it out of the box, so it looks like this. Comes with the appropriate cables, USB 3 plugged in, and appropriate screws I think in here. Hopefully this works well. I'll screw that in. And the other 5 1/4 inch device is the ROG front base. Now the front base is cool. My air conditioner just went on, so if it's got loud, that's what that is. If you look at the front base, I'm just going to pull it out here. Now this was not cheap, okay? But as a result, it's not cheaply made. This feels like solid glass in front. And the front here feels like solid glass. And it's a solid hunk of metal. It's actually got a good weight to it. Anyway, we're going to start doing this part of the build. Okay, so let's see. I've got the front base installed and the card reader installed. Had to do a little modification here. The Phantek actually has these really cool clips that when you push them in, they bring out 2 little pegs, and as you push a full-size 5 1/4 in, it pushes it open and then locks into place. It's really cool on this side. The only problem is the front base, the ROG front base, is actually a short one. It doesn't go in far enough to push the clip so that it'll come back into place. So all I did was I just propped it open with a piece of paper here. That way it pushes this way, which pushes the 2 little pegs into the front base here. So now this is solid as a rock going in either direction. Anyway, the next thing I'm going to do is look at the direction of the fans and the power supply. Make sure that I get all the cables on the power supply, and that way I can put everything through before I do the motherboard and the cooler. Anyway, let's see how it goes. So I've decided on the front fans going in, the back fan is going in, and this top fan is going in. So all the Phantek fans that came with the case are pointing in. The only 2 that are going to be blowing out are the 2 that are on my cooler, which is the Neptune 280, and the fan that is blowing out of the power supply. Okay, which will be covered anyway, so hopefully we'll have really good positive pressure. So right now we're going to put the power supply in. Okay, so I just opened the Corsair power supply. Never done a Corsair power supply before, but I got a comment on this. First, the box is immaculate. Look at this case that the cables come in is ridiculous. Beautifully done. And then the power supply itself comes in a what is this? Velvet bag. Additionally wrapped in plastic as well, so it's very well protected. I don't know if this is for all series, but definitely for the AX series. Just thought I'd comment on that. So I've decided at this point, before I put in the power cables, to actually review to start installing the motherboard. So to put the motherboard in and put in the processor, and then start putting on the cooler as well, and obviously the RAM. Every video that I've looked at, most of the people have the motherboard in before they put in the power supply cables. So I figured I'll do that first. Anyway, there's my Maximus Hero 8 and my processor and my RAM. And I got an additional light there that's causing that big green hue in the background, but hopefully you'll be able to see it. I'm going to move the cameras around so we can actually see what's going on. Okay, so for this particular part of the installation, I decided to put on vinyl gloves. Now, this will prevent me from getting any oils on the actual board or any parts that I touch, which I'm always concerned about. And so these fit skin tight, and so it should prevent me from transferring any oils onto the board and or like the memory chips or the processor. Okay, so we're going to remove this here. And we're supposed to inspect it, so I'm just inspecting the board itself, looking at the etch to see if there's any scratches or anything like this, and it looks really good. Okay, let's see if I can put it down so you can see everything. Okay, and everything looks good. Okay, let's put this back. So I guess the first step is going to be to put the CPU in the shim. And the CPU is going to be placed into the shim. Now we just have to look at this. This side's up, and we're looking for the little triangle. Now, in the videos I've seen, that little triangle was actually painted white. Now, right now in this one, it's not painted white, but there's a little triangle right there. Okay, so I'll put that down right there. And let's open up our CPU. There we go. And if we look at our CPU, it's amazing that little piece. And what you have to do is line up the little triangle with the triangle on the CPU. So if you can see the triangle on the CPU and the triangle on the shim, we're going to line those two up so you can see the triangle through the shim. Okay. Nice little snap to put it into place. Okay, now we're just going to raise this up, put this on, and then drop it into place. Okay, and then once it's in place, you put this on here. Make sure that the contacts are, here, I'm just going to move it in a little closer maybe, if we can see that better. There. That's going to go underneath as you put it in. So it goes underneath. Push this down with my index finger, and there we go, all in place. Okay, next is going to be the RAM. We'll put the RAM in place, and as you can see, I've got Corsair Vengeance 32 gigs, and I just got the 2400 right now. I might overclock later, but at this point I think this should be fine for my needs. So let's open it up. Okay, so if we look at these, they go in a particular way. They should match our slots. Now the motherboard says if you only have 2 to put it on the gray, but since I have 4 8s, I can put them in each one. And we just want to make sure there's nothing on there. And there we go. Processor seated and memory in. Okay, so got the motherboard out and the processor in. Gloves are on still. Going to be putting on the cooling. So I've got the Neptune 280L sitting here, and we're going to put on the shims on the back and the piece in the front, just to make sure everything fits okay before we mount it into the case. Okay, we're just going to move the motherboard off to the side while we do the pull out the Neptune. So let's do that now. Okay, so the air conditioner went on, so it's a little bit loud down here in the basement. Now, looking at the plate here, if you look carefully, it says AMD on one side and Intel on the other. So when you're going to be placing the back plate on, the Intel should be facing up. And on the actual cooling block, which is right here, we have to put on the appropriate plate. So the appropriate plate is going to be the Intel one, which is these ones. And I just watched the video and he showed me how to do it, so I'm just going to show you guys. Okay, so there is a little slot right back here, and you just have to make sure that you see it's beveled down like this. So the beveled down part is away like this, so it lines up better. And then you just have to line it up and put the little tiny screws in. And we're all in place. Now we've got to make sure that you peel off this plastic piece before you actually install, but I'm going to leave it on for now. Okay, let's do that. Put this off to the side. Now let's take a look at our back plate. Grab our motherboard here. And we actually do have a back plate on here. Oh no, we don't. That's just the processor plate, but this one is going to go on, the Intel plate here. So if we place that over top of this, it's going to be like that. Okay, to do our mounting in. Now to place these things correctly, before we do that, we have to put the appropriate screws in with the appropriate mounting. Now these are the screws that go in. And you'll notice that there's notches on each of these spots. So as we put these in, there's little arrows pointing in on them. So they only face, I guess, one way. I guess we'll find out in a second. Okay, so all four are connected in the number 2 slot for the slot 1151 for the back. Remember, the Intel should be facing out, so we should be able to see those, and it should fit perfectly into the holes. Okay, so now we're just going to flip it over after getting that quick little tutorial on the video, and we have to put the washers in place. So the washers were these ones that were in here. Screws back after, and I guess they're just straight through and they're the same on both sides, so we'll just place those down. And this will allow us to put the cooler on fairly simply. Okay, so just taking a look at my motherboard here, just wanted to make sure that I knew where all the holes are, and identified 1, 2, 3 on the bottom here, 4, 5, and then 6, 7, 8 at the very top, and actually 9. There's one over here, so 9 actual holes to screw in the motherboard. On the standoffs, within the case. Now I need to get the standoff screws, which would be in my cool Phantek accessory kit, which if we look inside to find, we find like the coolest thing a supplier could give us, which is a little case with every single screw you'd ever need to actually put your motherboard together. So we'll take a look and see which is the most appropriate for the motherboard and start screwing it in. So we need to place the motherboard in on the appropriate standoffs. Line everything up. So the next thing to go in is going to be the cooler. So I was just fitting it on to make sure everything fit okay and where the placement's going to go, and then the cooler's in here. Just recheck the processor to make sure everything was good with that. And I guess I can grab the thermal compound. I think at this point we are going to take the plastic off of the copper. Make sure that that's off. Let's place that somewhere safe so that I know it's off. Okay. Now we're going to put the thermal compound on. And I say put a like that. About the size of a pea. Okay, so what you didn't see is I was a little paranoid. I had a little bit of thermal compound on the cable. So I just took this out again and then just removed it. Now I've just lightly tightened these things with my fingers. Now I'm just going to give it a bit of a tighten with a screwdriver just to be safe. Now we have to put this on. I just want to check out where I'm going to run this cable. Okay, so now we got to put on the fans. These fans are long screws, and these are the only ones that are actually going to be blowing out. Everything else is going to be blowing in. Okay, so we got the one fan installed. That took a little bit of effort, I'm telling you that much. Now we're going to stand the case. So I think I will zoom back a bit. Stand the case up and put the other one in. Okay, so the next piece of this is going to be to determine where all the cables go. So I'm thinking what I'll do is do all the connections, USB and all that, and then continue with the other stuff after that. So just doing the initial analysis, just looking at this. So you can see my right up here. What I've done is I've identified all the different connections I have to make. At first I thought I might have had an issue with USB 2 ports because the front base looked like it required a USB 2 and a USB 3, and my NZXT card reader also required a USB 2. But as it turns out, the front base actually connects to an AAFP audio, HD audio connector. So I should be okay. Anyway, we're gonna see what happens. Right now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try and connect all these to the motherboard and just make sure that the cable routing is good. And then once I've got that done, have the connect up the power connectors. Okay, so I've got all the connections coming through and it looks pretty clean. The only thing I'm concerned about is some of the switches. If you look here, there's only a few switches here and I can't find the LED ones, so I'm assuming that they're all connected up through the either USB 2 or USB 3. There's nice clean connections. I hope these aren't too tight, but they come in really nice to the case. I decided to put all the cooling for the CPU onto the one set of fan headers, and it came through here very nicely. The only one I don't like is this one that's coming off here, but I guess I have to live with it. Okay, well, I decided to forego the power first and put in my two SSDs first. That way it'll just make it easier for me to connect everything up, and the last thing being power. So I'm going to do these next. Okay, after a bit of finagling, the two SSDs are now in place. Now it's power supply, so we'll have to see how this goes. Okay, so I just connected my two SATA connectors coming through here. Nice and clean. God, I love this case. Look, there's very few cables coming through. Obviously, I still have to get the power cables through. I've got one coming through here. But even once I have all the power cables in, I will have a cover that goes over this that will cover this completely. So we'll have a nice, really clean look. Okay, that's the great thing about the Phantek case. The power requirements for my GPU, I want to put in all the cables, so I'm going to have to open up my graphics card, which I've done, and I realize I shouldn't be touching it with my bare hands, so I'm going to put gloves on again. Take a look. Power requirements are definitely well, I decided I should put on the power supply cover first before I put in the graphics card, so that's what I'm going to do now. Okay, now I got the cover in place. You can see it makes it look very clean down below. You don't even have to take a look at any of the power cables. And now we're going to put in the graphics card. So I turned it on and everything's looking good. I'm going to have to install an OS right now. I did forget to install one item though. I need a wireless card, so this is the one recommended for my install. So I'm going to give it a shot, install that, and all done. Now operating system time. Okay, the wireless card is now installed in there. I put the 3 little aerials on the back. And now we're going to try an operating system install. Okay, so it's a week later now, and I've done 2 operating system installs on the system. Very challenging at first. I couldn't get the OS X to install. Had to go online, and an amazing gentleman named Stork helped me out, and we figured out the problem and got a great install. Geekbench on here has been fantastic. Windows 10 is also installed on the second SSD, so I've got a 10 and OS X installed on this system. I'm now going to add in, you can see the thing here, and I've got the different lights that you can switch, the different colors. So you go through a whole bunch of different colors here on the panel. I'm just going to switch it back to red. But I also just purchased, and that's why I've been waiting a week, is to get the additional lighting that's going to go around the inside of the case. Now I can see why people would buy the white version of this case, because I know it reflects really nicely, but I'm always a black case person. Anyway, in addition to that, I know I'm short on some power SATA cables from my power supply, but I have an adapter to an old power connection, and I know I have some old cables in there, so that I can connect this into the front base that required a power connection through SATA. And as a result, I can take the existing one that I'm using that has 4 SATA power connectors in, and I am going to install 2 Seagate 4 terabyte hard drives. And so let's get to it. Okay, so we're all done, and so 2 hard drives added, the LED strip added. Didn't seem to need an adhesive. The magnet seemed to hold onto it fine, so it's just really just sitting in there loose. Didn't actually need the extension power cable because I forgot I'd put one SATA cable in at the bottom, so I just used that one. Put it at the bottom so that the airflow from the 200mm fan in front will still have a good amount of airflow blowing through the hard drive trays that are just not even being used right now. Anyway, let's power it on, take a look. So turn that power on, and let's see what it looks like. Ooh, pretty cool, eh? Oh, let's see. Let's flip around here. Okay, so let's see. How many colors do we have? Let's see. Oh, I just did a reset. Oh, that's okay. Here we go. Here's the power button. There we go. It's a green, I guess. And we have a blue. Looks a little purple on screen there. That's purple. Okay, and this is a sort of copper gold color. And that's a lighter purple, I guess. And that's a light blue. And a lighter green. And I guess another blue. And another darker purple. And back to red. It's a fantastic lighting strip. It's amazing what you can do with this one. Well worth the money. And I'm so happy with this build. I hope you enjoyed the video. This is my first one, and maybe I'll do another video just showing you the OS's installed. Okay, take care. Bye.